Some tractors changed farming forever. Others changed it for all the wrong reasons. Today, we're counting down 13 tractors that were so dangerous, so unreliable, or so poorly designed that they should never have left the factory floor. From catastrophic mechanical failures to designs that put farmers' lives at risk, these machines represent the dark side of agricultural engineering. This is the story of ambition gone wrong, corners cut too deep, and the tractors that should be banned. Number 13. Ford 8N. The Ford 8N is a legend. Over 500,000 were built between 1947 and 1952, making it one of the most successful tractors in American history. Farmers loved its simplicity, reliability, and affordability. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The Ford 8N was a death trap. The four-cylinder gasoline engine produced 27 horsepower, paired with a 4-speed manual transmission that made the 8N nimble and versatile for small farms. It could plow, disc, and haul with the best tractors of its era, but it had no rollover protection. None. In an era before ROPS, or rollover protection structures, became standard, the 8N's design made it exceptionally prone to backward flips. The short wheelbase and rear-mounted implements created a high center of gravity that could shift dramatically under load. Thousands of farmers died when their 8N flipped backward during heavy pulls or when climbing slopes. The braking system was weak, relying on mechanical drum brakes that struggled to stop the tractor when pulling heavy loads or descending hills. Brake fade was common, and many operators found themselves unable to stop on steep terrain. The 8N's popularity meant it was everywhere, used by experienced farmers and weekend hobbyists alike. That widespread use translated into widespread accidents. The National Safety Council documented thousands of tractor-related deaths during the 1940s and 50s, with the Ford 8N involved in a disproportionate number due to its sheer volume in the field. Ford designed the 8N for utility and economy, not safety. The lack of a cab, roll bar, or modern safety features reflected the era's priorities, but that doesn't excuse the design flaws that killed people. The 8N's rear-mounted hydraulics and 3-point hitch made it excellent for implement attachment, but the physics of weight distribution made rollovers inevitable when improperly loaded. Today, the Ford 8N is a collector's item, a symbol of post-war American agriculture, but it's also a reminder that popularity doesn't equal safety, and that sometimes the most beloved machines are also the most dangerous. Number 12. International Harvester 560. The International Harvester 560 should have been a triumph. Introduced in 1958 as part of the revolutionary 60 series, it featured a 6-cylinder engine producing around 66 horsepower and a 5-speed manual transmission. The 560 was modern, powerful, and positioned to compete with John Deere's best offerings. Instead, it became one of the biggest embarrassments in IH history. The rear axle was the problem. International had rushed the 560 to market without adequate testing, using rear-end components that couldn't handle the engine's increased power. The rear differential and final drive parts were essentially unchanged from earlier, less powerful models, creating a fundamental mismatch between engine output and drivetrain capacity. Under heavy loads, the ball bearings in the bull gear assembly would fail catastrophically, causing the rear axle housing to explode. Farmers would be in the middle of plowing a field when the rear end would grenade, leaving them stranded with a tractor that was mechanically totaled. The failures weren't isolated incidents. They happened across the country, in different soil conditions, with different operators. The common thread was the 560's inadequate rear-end design. Management had been so focused on competing with John Deere's new generation tractors that development budgets were squeezed and proper field testing never happened. By 1959, International issued a massive recall, replacing rear axle components on thousands of tractors at enormous cost to the company. The recall was one of the first major tractor recalls in history, and it damaged International's reputation for years. Dealers reported that customers who had experienced 560 failures were reluctant to buy International products again. Even after the problems were corrected, the 560's problems went beyond just mechanical failure. When the rear axle failed, it often happened suddenly and violently, with parts breaking loose and creating hazards for the operator. The financial cost to farmers was enormous. Downtime during critical planting or harvest seasons could cost thousands of dollars in lost productivity. International eventually fixed the 560, and later models with updated components became reliable workhorses, but the damage was done. The 560 proved that even major manufacturers could release fundamentally flawed products and that farmers would pay the price. Number 11. John Deere, 2010. John Deere built its reputation on quality and reliability. The green and yellow paint meant something. It meant you could trust the machine. But the 2010, produced from 1960 to 1965, shattered that trust. This 4-cylinder tractor produced around 46 horsepower through an 8-speed manual transmission. On paper, it was John Deere's entry into modern farming. In reality, it was plagued by weak hydraulics and unreliable engines that made it dangerous under heavy loads. The hydraulic system was the biggest problem. The 2010's hydraulics couldn't maintain consistent pressure under load, causing implements to drop unexpectedly or fail to lift when needed. Farmers pulling plows or operating loaders found the hydraulics would fade, leaving them unable to control their implements. The belly-mounted hydraulic pumps on models with power steering were especially problematic, with parts becoming scarce, even decades after production ended. The engine design featured an experimental deck plate system that was prone to leaks and failures. Water would seep into the oil, cylinder sleeves would crack, and the engine would lose compression. The deck plate design rested directly on top of the cylinder sleeves, using O-rings to create a seal, but the system proved inadequate under real-world operating conditions. The 2010 required constant maintenance and frequent repairs that frustrated owners and emptied wallets. John Deere's service network struggled to keep up with warranty claims. Dealers reported that 2010 owners were bringing tractors in for repairs so frequently that it strained parts inventory and service capacity. The 2010's transmission also had issues, with gear synchronizers wearing prematurely and shift forks bending under stress. The PTO, or power takeoff, system also presented problems because the tractor couldn't shift gears while the PTO was engaged, limiting its versatility in the field. Many farmers found they couldn't trust the 2010 for critical work. During planting or harvest, when every hour mattered, the 2010 would fail. That unreliability cost farmers money, time, and trust in the John Deere brand. John Deere abandoned the deck plate design after the 2010, and no subsequent models in the new generation line used it. John Deere never built another tractor like the 2010. They learned from the mistakes, improved their testing procedures, and ensured future models wouldn't repeat the same failures. But for farmers who bought a 2010, those lessons came too late. The 2010 remains a dark chapter in John Deere's history, proof that even the best companies can build terrible tractors. Number 10. Allis-Chalmers D19 Diesel. Allis-Chalmers built a reputation on innovation and power. The D19 Diesel, produced from 1961 to 1964, promised both. It featured a 262 cubic inch diesel engine producing around 66 horsepower, paired with an 8-speed manual transmission. The D19 was designed for serious farming operations that needed reliable power for heavy field work. But the D19 delivered something else entirely: hydraulic instability and poor reliability under heavy loads. The hydraulic system suffered from inconsistent pressure and frequent seal failures. Operators found that the 3-point hitch would drop unexpectedly, that hydraulic remotes would lose pressure mid-operation, and that the entire system required constant bleeding and adjustment. The hydraulic pump design couldn't generate sufficient flow for modern implements, making the D19 frustratingly slow when operating loaders or other hydraulic equipment. Under heavy loads, the D19's hydraulic pump couldn't keep up with demand. Running a heavy plow or pulling a loaded grain cart would cause the hydraulics to overheat and lose pressure, leaving farmers unable to control their implements safely. The hydraulic oil would break down under heat stress, further degrading system performance and accelerating component wear. The engine, while powerful, was prone to injection pump failures and fuel system problems. The high-pressure injection system required precise maintenance that many farmers couldn't provide, leading to poor starting, rough running, and premature wear. The fuel filters would clog frequently, and the injection nozzles would carbon up, requiring expensive cleaning and rebuilding. The D19's clutch was another weak point. The pressure plate couldn't handle the engine's torque, leading to slipping and premature failure. Replacing the clutch required splitting the tractor, an expensive and time-consuming job that added to the D19's reputation as a maintenance nightmare. The transmission itself had issues with gear wear, particularly in the lower ranges where torque loads were highest. Allis-Chalmers owners were loyal, often willing to overlook problems in favor of the brand's power and features. But the D19 tested that loyalty. Farmers who depended on their D19 found themselves stranded in fields, waiting for parts and losing money. Dealers struggled to keep critical parts in stock, and many D19 owners found themselves waiting weeks for components during busy seasons. The D19 proved that power without reliability is worthless, and that even innovative companies can build tractors that shouldn't have been sold. Number 9. Oliver 1800 Diesel. Oliver tractors were known for quality engineering and attention to detail. The 1800 Diesel, produced from 1960 to 1964, featured a 6-cylinder diesel engine, producing around 77 horsepower, with a 6-speed manual transmission. It was positioned as a premium tractor for farmers who wanted more power and refinement. But the 1800 had a fatal flaw: its fuel system. The injection pump and fuel delivery system were temperamental and prone to failure, especially in cold weather. Farmers in northern climates found that the 1800 wouldn't start reliably when temperatures dropped below freezing. The fuel would gel, the injection pump would seize, and the tractor would sit useless while work piled up. Even in moderate temperatures, the fuel system required constant attention. Fuel filters would clog, injection nozzles would carbon up, and the high-pressure lines would crack and leak. The maintenance schedule for the 1800's fuel system was aggressive, requiring more attention than most farmers could provide. Cold weather reliability was particularly poor. Oliver's diesel engine used a glow plug system that was inadequate for sub-zero temperatures. Farmers would spend hours trying to start the 1800, burning through batteries and starter motors in the process. Many 1800 owners kept gasoline-powered tractors as backups, specifically because they couldn't trust the Oliver to start when needed. The 1800's electrical system also suffered in cold weather, with the generator struggling to keep the batteries charged during winter operation. The combination of fuel system problems and cold weather unreliability made the 1800 a liability for farmers in much of the northern United States and Canada. Oliver built a beautiful tractor with impressive power, but they failed to make it work in the real-world conditions farmers faced. The 1800 taught the industry that premium engineering means nothing if the machine won't start when you need it. Number 8. Case 310. The Case 310, produced from 1958 to 1960, was a small utility tractor powered by a 4-cylinder gasoline engine producing around 30 horsepower. It featured a 4-speed manual transmission and was marketed as an affordable option for small farms and commercial operations. But the 310 was plagued by transmission failures and unsafe operator ergonomics that made it dangerous to operate. The transmission couldn't handle even moderate loads without grinding gears and breaking synchronizers. Farmers found that the 310 would pop out of gear during operation, a dangerous situation when pulling implements or operating on slopes. The shift linkage was poorly designed, with excessive play that made it difficult to find gears and maintain engagement under load. The clutch was inadequate for the engine's power, leading to slipping and overheating that accelerated wear. The clutch pedal required excessive effort to operate, causing operator fatigue during extended use. The operator station was poorly designed, with controls placed awkwardly and visibility limited by the hood and fenders. The seat position put the operator too far back, making it difficult to see implements and judge distances accurately. The steering required excessive effort, making the 310 exhausting to operate for extended periods. The steering wheel was positioned too close to the seat, forcing operators into uncomfortable postures that led to back and shoulder pain. The brake system was marginal at best. The mechanical brakes provided minimal stopping power, especially when the tractor was pulling loads or operating on hills. Brake fade was common, and many operators found themselves unable to stop the 310 safely. The brake pedals were positioned awkwardly, making it difficult to apply equal pressure to both brakes for straight-line stopping. The 310's electrical system was unreliable, with the generator unable to maintain consistent charging and the ignition system prone to moisture-related failures. Cold starting was difficult, and many 300's 10s required manual cranking to get started. The carburetor was temperamental and required frequent adjustment to maintain proper fuel mixture. Case discontinued the 310 after just 2 years, acknowledging the design's flaws. But thousands of 310s were sold during that brief production run, and farmers were stuck with tractors that were unsafe and unreliable. The rapid discontinuation left owners with limited parts support and dealers who were reluctant to service a model the manufacturer had abandoned. The 310 proved that even established manufacturers could build fundamentally flawed tractors, and that sometimes the only solution was to stop production and start over. Number 7. Massey Ferguson 35. The Massey Ferguson 35, particularly early 1960s models, was one of the most popular compact tractors of its era. The 3-cylinder diesel engine produced 37 horsepower through a 6-speed manual transmission, making it ideal for small to medium farms. Massey Ferguson sold tens of thousands of 35s worldwide, building a reputation for simplicity and versatility. But the 35 had serious safety problems that killed farmers. Like the Ford 8N, the Massey Ferguson 35 had no rollover protection. The compact design and short wheelbase made it prone to backward flips, especially when pulling heavy loads or operating on slopes. The lack of ROPS meant that when the tractor flipped, the operator had no protection. The braking system was inadequate for the tractor's weight and power. The mechanical drum brakes provided minimal stopping force, especially when descending hills or pulling loaded equipment. Brake fade was common, and many operators found themselves unable to control the tractor on slopes. The steering system lacked power assist, requiring significant physical effort to turn the wheels. On rough terrain or when operating with front-end loaders, the steering became dangerously heavy, making it difficult to control the tractor precisely. The 35's hydraulic system, while generally reliable, couldn't handle the demands of modern implements. Operating heavy equipment would cause the hydraulics to overheat and lose pressure, creating dangerous situations when implements would drop unexpectedly. The compact size that made the 35 popular also made it unstable. The narrow track width and high center of gravity meant the tractor could tip over easily on side slopes or uneven ground. Thousands of Massey Ferguson 35s are still in use today, beloved for their simplicity and durability. But that popularity came at a cost, measured in lives lost to rollovers and accidents. The 35 represents an era when tractor manufacturers prioritized sales over safety, and farmers paid the price. Number 6. Fordson Major Diesel. The Fordson Major Diesel, produced from 1952 to 1964, was Ford's workhorse tractor for the British and Commonwealth markets. The 4-cylinder diesel engine produced around 51 horsepower through a 6-speed manual transmission, making it capable of serious farm work. But the Fordson Major had a deadly problem: steering failures and dangerous handling on uneven terrain. The steering system used a worm and sector design that was prone to wear and failure. As the steering components wore, play would develop in the system, making it difficult to control the tractor precisely. In severe cases, the steering would fail completely, leaving the operator unable to control the tractor's direction. The steering column itself was vulnerable to impact damage, and even minor collisions could bend the column enough to bind the steering mechanism. The steering geometry was poorly designed for stability. The front axle placement and kingpin angles made the Fordson Major prone to sudden directional changes on rough ground. Operators reported that the tractor would dart unexpectedly when hitting bumps or ruts, making it dangerous to operate at speed. The front wheels had a tendency to shimmy at higher speeds, creating vibrations that made steering control even more difficult. The narrow front end option, popular for row crop work, made the handling even more treacherous. The narrow track provided less stability, and the reduction in steering control made the tractor difficult to manage on anything but flat ground. The narrow front configuration increased the risk of front-end flips when the tractor encountered obstacles or sudden terrain changes. The braking system couldn't adequately control the tractor's momentum. The drum brakes lacked the power needed to stop the Fordson Major quickly, especially when pulling implements or operating on hills. Many accidents occurred when operators couldn't stop the tractor before hitting obstacles or rolling into dangerous situations. The brake linkage was exposed and vulnerable to mud and debris, which would cause binding and uneven braking that pulled the tractor to one side. The Fordson Major's fuel tank was positioned above the engine, creating a fire hazard in the event of a rollover or collision. Several fatal fires were attributed to fuel tank ruptures during accidents. The high-mounted fuel tank also affected weight distribution, raising the center of gravity and making the tractor more prone to tipping. Ford eventually addressed some of these issues in later models, but thousands of dangerous Fordson Majors remained in service for decades. The long production run meant these flawed tractors were sold in massive numbers across Europe, Africa, and Asia. The combination of steering problems and handling instability made the Fordson Major one of the most dangerous tractors of its era. Number 5. International Harvester 1466 Turbo. By 1971, tractor manufacturers had learned hard lessons about safety and reliability. OSHA regulations were tightening, and farmers were demanding better machines. International Harvester introduced the 1466 Turbo, a powerful beast with a 6-cylinder, turbocharged diesel, producing around 145 horsepower through an 8-speed manual transmission. On paper, it was exactly what large farms needed. But the 1466 Turbo was dangerously unstable under heavy loads and prone to rollovers. The turbocharged engine produced massive torque that the chassis struggled to manage. Under heavy draft loads, the 1466 would rear up, lifting the front wheels off the ground and putting all the weight on the rear axle. This weight transfer made the tractor unstable and difficult to control. The turbocharger added complexity that many farmers couldn't maintain properly. Boost leaks, failed wastegates, and oil consumption problems plagued the turbo system. When the turbo failed, the 1466 lost power suddenly, creating dangerous situations when operating under load. The hydraulic system was inadequate for the tractor's power. Operating heavy implements would cause the hydraulics to overheat, leading to seal failures and loss of pressure. The power steering, dependent on the hydraulic system, would become heavy and unresponsive when the hydraulics overheated. The 1466's weight distribution made it prone to rollovers on side slopes. The high horsepower and aggressive lug tires could cause the tractor to climb over obstacles rather than push through them, leading to tip-overs. The cab, while providing rollover protection, was poorly designed for visibility. The thick pillars and small windows made it difficult to see implements and surroundings, leading to accidents when operators couldn't judge clearances or terrain. International built the 1466 Turbo through 1976, selling thousands to farmers who needed maximum power. But the combination of instability and mechanical complexity made it one of the most dangerous, high-horsepower tractors of the 70s. Number 4. David Brown 990. David Brown tractors were British-built machines with a reputation for quality engineering. The 990, produced from 1965 to 1971, featured a 4-cylinder diesel, producing around 52 horsepower through a 12-speed manual transmission. The multiple gears gave operators flexibility in matching ground speed to load, making the 990 popular for varied farm work. But the gearbox was a nightmare. The 12-speed transmission used a complicated gear arrangement that was prone to failure. Synchros would wear out prematurely, gears would grind and chip, and shift forks would bend under stress. Many 990 owners found themselves stuck in a single gear, unable to shift without major transmission repairs. The gear selection pattern was confusing and non-intuitive, requiring operators to memorize a complex shift sequence that led to frequent missed shifts and grinding. The clutch system couldn't handle the transmission's complexity. The pressure plate and release bearing wore quickly, leading to clutch slippage and difficulty shifting. Replacing the clutch required splitting the tractor, an expensive operation that 990 owners faced regularly. The hydraulic clutch release system was prone to leaks, and when fluid levels dropped, the clutch would become nearly impossible to disengage. The operator ergonomics were terrible. The seat position, pedal placement, and control layout made the 990 exhausting to operate. The clutch pedal required excessive effort. The gear shifter had long throws that required reaching awkwardly, and the steering wheel was positioned too close to the seat. The dashboard layout was illogical, with gauges scattered in positions that made monitoring engine conditions difficult while operating. The hydraulic system was underpowered for modern implements. The pump couldn't generate sufficient flow for large cylinders, making the 990 slow and inefficient when operating loaders or other hydraulic equipment. The hydraulic controls were mounted in awkward positions that required operators to take their hands off the steering wheel to adjust implement settings. The electrical system was notoriously unreliable. The generator couldn't keep up with electrical demands, batteries would drain during operation, and the entire electrical system was vulnerable to moisture and vibration. The wiring harness used inferior insulation that would crack and deteriorate, causing shorts and electrical fires. David Brown eventually addressed many of these issues in later models, but the 990 remained a problem tractor throughout its production run. Farmers who bought 990s found themselves with machines that were difficult to operate, expensive to maintain, and unreliable when they needed them most. Parts availability was poor, even when the tractor was in production, and dealers often struggled to source critical transmission and clutch components. The 990's reputation for complexity and unreliability damaged David Brown's standing in the North American market for years to come. Number 3. Kubota B3350. Modern tractors are supposed to be better. Decades of engineering refinement, safety regulations, and technological advancement should have eliminated the problems that plagued earlier machines. But the Kubota B3350, produced from 2014 to 2019, proved that even modern manufacturers can build dangerous, unreliable tractors. The 4-cylinder diesel engine produced 33 horsepower through a hydrostatic transmission, and it featured modern emissions equipment, including a DPF, or diesel particulate filter. That DPF system was the B3350's downfall. The DPF regeneration process, designed to burn off accumulated soot, would fail frequently and catastrophically. The tractor would enter regeneration mode, heating the exhaust system to extreme temperatures to burn soot from the filter. But if the regeneration cycle was interrupted or failed to complete, the DPF would clog, causing the engine to lose power suddenly. Farmers operating the B3350 would experience sudden power loss in the middle of critical tasks. The engine would derate to protect itself, leaving operators stranded with a tractor that wouldn't respond to throttle inputs. The regeneration failures created fire hazards. The extreme exhaust temperatures during regeneration could ignite dry grass or crop residue near the tractor, causing fires that destroyed equipment and crops. Kubota's solution was to require frequent manual regenerations, forcing operators to stop work and let the tractor idle for extended periods while the DPF cleaned itself. This interruption cost farmers time and money during busy seasons. The hydrostatic transmission had its own problems. Fluid contamination would cause loss of power and erratic operation. The transmission would overheat under sustained heavy loads, leading to seal failures and expensive repairs. The B3350's complexity made it nearly impossible for farmers to repair themselves. The computerized engine management system required dealer diagnostic equipment, and even simple repairs required specialized tools and knowledge. Kubota eventually discontinued the B3350, acknowledging the design's fundamental flaws. But thousands of B3350s are still in service, and owners continue to struggle with reliability problems that should never exist in modern tractors. Number 2. John Deere 2320. John Deere learned hard lessons from the 2000s failures in the 1960s. By the 2000s, John Deere tractors were known for reliability and quality, but the 2320, produced from 2006 to 2012, betrayed that reputation with U-joint failures that caused dangerous driveline breakdowns. The 3-cylinder diesel produced 24 horsepower through a hydrostatic transmission, making it ideal for compact farms and commercial operations. But the driveline used U-joints that were undersized and prone to catastrophic failure. Under normal operation, the U-joints would wear and eventually fail without warning. When a U-joint broke, the driveline would separate, causing immediate loss of power and control. If the failure occurred on a slope or when pulling a load, the tractor would become uncontrollable. The broken driveline components could flail and strike the operator or bystanders, creating serious injury hazards. The U-joint failures were widespread enough that John Deere issued service bulletins and offered repairs, but they never issued a formal recall. Thousands of 2,320 owners were left to discover the problem themselves, often at the worst possible moment. Online forums filled with complaints from owners who experienced sudden driveline failures, many reporting near-miss accidents on hillsides and roadways. The hydrostatic transmission had cooling problems that led to premature failure. The transmission would overheat under sustained loads, breaking down the hydraulic fluid and causing internal damage. Many 2,320 owners faced expensive transmission replacements well before the tractor should have needed them. The cooling fan design was inadequate for the transmission's heat output, and the radiator placement restricted airflow during heavy work. The 2032's hydraulic system suffered from contamination problems. Dirt and debris would enter the system through poorly designed seals, causing valve failures and cylinder damage. The 3-point hitch would become erratic, implements would drop unexpectedly, and the entire hydraulic system would require expensive cleaning and repairs. The hydraulic filters were undersized and would clog quickly under dusty conditions, restricting flow and causing pressure spikes that damaged components. John Deere's reputation for quality meant buyers trusted the 2320. That trust was betrayed by a tractor that failed in ways that could have killed people. The U-joint failures alone should have triggered a recall, but John Deere handled it quietly, leaving farmers to pay for repairs that should have been warranty work. Owners reported that dealers were initially reluctant to acknowledge the problem as a design flaw, instead blaming operator error or improper maintenance. The 2320 proved that even John Deere, with decades of engineering excellence behind them, could produce fundamentally flawed machines when cost-cutting compromised critical components. Number 1. Fiat 400. At the top of our list sits the Fiat 400, a tractor so poorly built and dangerous that it represents everything wrong with cutting corners in agricultural equipment. Produced during the 1960s and 70s, the Fiat 400 featured a 4-cylinder diesel, producing around 45 horsepower through a 6-speed manual transmission. Fiat positioned it as an affordable option for small to medium farms, particularly in export markets. But the Fiat 400 was a disaster in every way that mattered. The hydraulic system was catastrophically weak. The pump couldn't generate sufficient pressure for reliable implement operation, and the entire system was prone to leaks and failures. Seals would blow out, hoses would burst, and the hydraulic fluid would contaminate everything it touched. Under heavy farm use, the Fiat 400's hydraulics would fail completely, leaving farmers unable to operate implements or control the 3-point hitch. The build quality was abysmal. Components were made from inferior materials that wore quickly and failed prematurely. The transmission would lose gears, the clutch would slip, and the axles would develop play that made the tractor dangerous to operate. The engine, while capable of producing 45 horsepower, was unreliable and difficult to maintain. The injection pump would fail, fuel system components would leak, and the entire engine required constant attention to keep running. Cold starting was nearly impossible without auxiliary heating. The operator station offered no protection and terrible ergonomics. The seat was uncomfortable, controls were poorly placed, and visibility was limited. The lack of rollover protection made every operation dangerous, and the weak braking system couldn't adequately control the tractor on slopes. The electrical system was primitive and unreliable. The generator couldn't maintain consistent charging. The wiring harness was poorly protected from the elements, and electrical failures were constant. Fiat eventually exited the tractor market in North America, but thousands of Fiat 400s were sold before the company gave up. Farmers who bought them found themselves with tractors that were unsafe, unreliable, and nearly impossible to maintain. The Fiat 400 proved that cheap isn't always affordable, and that some tractors should never have been built. These 13 tractors represent failures of engineering, safety, and corporate responsibility. From the beloved Ford 8N that killed thousands, to the modern Kubota B3350 that proved complexity can be as dangerous as simplicity. Each machine taught the industry hard lessons. Some manufacturers learned and improved. Others repeated the same mistakes. But every tractor on this list reminds us that farming is dangerous work and that the machines we trust our lives to must be built right. Which of these tractors have you experienced? Share your stories in the comments. And if you believe agricultural safety matters, hit subscribe for more stories from the fields.